Hello Game Makers, this is GameMaker Rob, and in this episode I'll be showing you how to load your own name creator at will, and you'll be able to use it to change the names of as many characters as you want throughout your games. Okay, so just in preparation I'll show you the things that I already have. Sprite wise, here is the sprite I'm using as a cursor. I've got the origin in the top right, and it's a size of 47 by 32. That's it for the sprites. To start with, we're just going to have one object. We're going to call it OBJ name creator, and let's just put it in the room for now so we don't forget. We'll change this later so that it's spawned by the hero itself. And inside the object name creator, we're just going to set up our grid variables. Grid X is 0, grid Y 0, and we're going to set up our string of capital letters. We want there to be 29 characters in this string because we want 30 total, but the last one is reserved for the OK button. And the next thing we're going to do is add the for loop. I'm just going to paste some code and explain it. X letters and Y letters is going to define the shape of the grid. You can change these numbers to whatever you like, as long as when you multiply them they add up to 30, and they have to be integers obviously. Car count, we're just using that to track how far along the string we get to. As soon as we get to 29, we want to forget about this, and we want to say if car count equals 30, then we're going to add OK to the array. Otherwise, from 1, which starts here, to 29, we're adding it here. I just want to explain the idea behind it. We're going to make a grid using a 2D array, and each entry in the grid is going to have either a letter, a space, or the OK button as shown in this diagram. We're going to use a simple for loop to cycle through the grid and add a character from the string to it. The OK button is simply added to the last entry in the grid, which is 92 in this example. We're using the variables grid X and grid Y to track which entry our cursor is on. And when the player presses a button, he's going to either add or subtract 1 from grid X or grid Y. And if that would take the cursor outside the bounds of the grid, we just loop it back to the opposite end. That's it really. The rest of it's pretty simple. We're either just adding or removing a character to a string. That's going to be the character's name. There are plenty of ways to do this, and I decided really that a grid was going to be pretty easy to work with. It's nice to define boundaries. It's also worth noting that if you make your own font from a sprite sheet, you can make the OK button fit into just one space like the rest of the characters, but that's beyond the scope of this tutorial. As ever, if that's something you'd be interested in me making a tutorial on, then please let me know in the comments below. Okay, before we do the next bit, I'd better show you the room I've got. This one here, it's a width of 640, height 480. I'm not using any views in this at all. And I also have a font called FNT Monospace, and it's a size of 28, and the actual characters take up exactly the same space. For this tutorial you don't actually need a monospace font. You can use any kind of font you want, to be honest. So inside OBJ name creator, we're going to create the draw Gui event, and we're going to have 3 new things. We're going to set the font to monospace, and we're going to grab the size of the font, and we're also going to set up a variable called buffer. This is just to basically space things out properly. And then we're going to, if you want to copy and paste the for loop from the create event, you can do, because we're going to need this bit from that. And the coordinates where I start is 200 for the Y and 60 for the X. and we're going to use car count again, but we're going to define it here because we want this to run every step of the game to draw the characters. And inside the second for loop, this is the main code. So var letter is going to grab whatever letter is in those grid coordinates. So it's either going to be a letter, a space, or the OK button. And draw X is where we're drawing that particular letter. So it's just XX times font size times 2 for that one. And draw Y is start Y plus YY times font size plus buffer, like that. Draw set H align FA left, and draw set V align FA top. Draw text. So this is how we're going to draw the letters. So we've defined draw X and draw Y now, so we're going to place them here. It looks a lot nicer than having this code stuck in there, for example. It's a lot easier for you to read. And we're also going to display the cursor. So to do that, all we're going to do simply is check whether XX and YY have gotten to the point where they equal grid X and grid Y. And if you remember, in our create event, grid X and grid Y is at 0. So we should be expecting our cursor to show at the top left on the A letter. And that's it. Let's run the game just to make sure this works. Okay, cool. Hopefully you've got something that looks like this. Okay, so now we have it displayed how we want. We're going to add some input. So back into the create event of our name creator. And at the top, we're going to say define keys. And I'm just going to copy and paste a few variables here. So we've got press left, press right, press up, press down, press OK, press cancel, and press select, which we're not going to need for this. that's for the extra version. So up, down, left, right, press OK to add a button or to finish entering the string, or cancel will actually delete a letter from the name. And now we want to create a step event, and we'll make a new region, player input, and again I'm just going to copy and paste. So what I've done here is I have allowed for different keys to create the same result. So if you press left or left on the D-pad, it's going to set press left to true. If neither of these have been pressed, then press left is going to be false. And it's exactly the same with every other button here. There's a keyboard version and a gamepad version. So let's make a new region, and we're going to call it move the cursor. Again, I'm going to copy and paste some code. All we're doing is, if we either press left, right, up or down, we're going to move either grid X or grid Y. So basically, if any of these conditions are true, then one of these code blocks is going to run. And what we need to do basically is we're just checking to make sure that we're not going outside the bounds of the grid, which is, in this example, it's 0 to 9 for the grid X coordinate and 0 to 2 for the grid Y coordinate. So the top line is always checking if grid X or grid Y plus or minus 1 is going to take us outside of the boundaries of the grid. And if it is going to take us outside the boundaries, then we just wrap the coordinate back to either the end or the start. So for example, if we're at 0, 0 here for A, and we press left once, it's going to -1 from 0, which would normally take us to -1, but because of our check, it's wrapping us around to the end, which is 9. That's what this line does, and it's the same for every other line. So once you've typed this down, just run the game and make sure that it works like this. Make sure that it wraps around. At this point, I would like to say as well that in terms of player input, it's not cool to have to press a button every time you want to move across. In the second part of this tutorial, we'll be able to hold buttons down and move across at will. It'll be a lot better. Okay, so I'm just going to minimize these 2 regions because we don't need them right now. And I'm going to add 2 more in that I've already typed up. So for this first one, we're checking if we've pressed OK. So if this is true, basically. And we want to grab the value of the grid coordinates, which is what's happening here. And then we want to make sure we're not pressing OK. So as long as the entry inside A letters grid X grid Y is not equal to OK, then we're going to add a new letter to the current name, which we haven't defined yet. So just copy this variable and go into the create event, and let's put it just above here. Current name equals hero or herp. I'll do. And under cancel, pretty similar. If global.pcancel, pcan, we need to check that there's at least 1 letter in the name. That's what this does. String length returns the number of characters. So for example, in hero, it would return 4. If we have at least 1 character, then delete it. So if you've got more than 1 character, current name, so what at the moment it's called hero, is going to lose its last letter, which is what this does. And we actually want to see this in action now. So if we go to the draw Gui event, just after we're defining font size and buffer, we're going to add a new region, and we're going to call it draw current name. And I'm going to paste some code here. So I've got a new start X and start Y coordinate. I'm just making sure the H align and V align is left and top. It's not going to be affected by anything else now, but it's just good practice to put it in there, just so your text doesn't move if you don't want it to. And we're just drawing text at the start X, start Y coordinate, and the string is going to be current name. So if we run the game, we should be able to add and delete some characters from the name. So if I press delete, is it delete? Backspace. Sorry, delete. Yeah, there we go. So I can delete characters. What did I put down for enter? Okay. I forgot what controls I put down. So, and if we call it herp or herpes, why not? There we go. So we're now able to change the name from from hero to herpes. We're nearly done for this tutorial. The last part is going to be, well, we'll find out, I guess. Okay, so we are going to make a new object. Let's call it obj hero. and in its create event, we're going to say name equals herpes, and draw GUI event. Yeah. So right now, all we're doing is drawing its name. We want to delete name creator from the room, and we're going to drag in obj hero. So just to explain what we're doing is, the point of this tutorial is to show you guys how to create a name generator, but also how to show you how to spawn it. So for example, if you want to keep adding characters to the party, so you might be halfway through the game and you add a dragon to fly, and then you want to be able to load the name generator and name the dragon. This is how you're going to do it. So here we are, we've got our new hero in the room. It's called Herpes, and we just want to make sure it's drawing its name for now. Let's run the game. There we go. Awesome. So now we're going to say in the step event, let's just enlarge this. If keyboard check pressed, and then we'll do odd 1. So we're pressing 1. Then name creator equals instance create, we'll say depth 0, 0, depth -50, and we're going to create obj name creator like so. Name creator dot car to name equals ID, and name creator dot current name equals name. So all we're doing is we're pressing 1 and we're creating an instance of the name creator. We're saving the ID of the object, or the instance of the object that we want to change the name of, because we're going to pass that name back when we're done, and we're just setting the default name to whatever name is in the instance that we have created for the hero. One thing we should be doing as well is this, and obj name creator. We don't want to have more than one name creator, otherwise that's going to mess us up big time. We just sort out this. How many? Is there too many? 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, there's way too many. One, 2, 3. Should be 2 there. There we go. Okay. So if we press in 1 and we haven't already created name creator, then create it. There we go. And what we need to do now is inside name creator. So inside the step event of name creator, inside the region for pressed OK, as soon as we know what letter we're grabbing, we want to say if new letter equals OK. Then we want to save the new name to the hero. So if new letter equals OK, then character name dot name equals current name, and then instance destroy. So let's run the game. So press 1. Let's just fix that first. I forgot to do that. Inside OBJ hero in the draw Gui event, we only want this to run if the name creator doesn't exist. So if instance exists, OBJ name creator. So if it doesn't exist, show the name. Okay, let's run the game again. Okay, so press 1. Let's delete. And we'll type game. GameMaker Rob. Press OK, and we've destroyed the name creator, and now the hero has been named GameMaker Rob. And that's it. I hope you guys enjoyed the tutorial. Next time we're going to be adding extra things like being able to hold down buttons. It's a lot better for the player. Sound effects, showing the hero sprite, and lowercase, as well as a few other things. So I will catch you then. Bye for now.